Next up is Bruce Poon Tip, who's the founder and CEO of G Adventures, which is the world's largest small group adventure company. And he's here to tell you about his company and why it's a total new co.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I'm here to talk to you about disrupting an industry and changing the world. No big whoop, right? In one of the oldest industries, which is travel, dating back to the old explorers of our time who had a carnal urge to explore. The travel industry, when we started back, we have to go back to 1990 to understand the travel industry, how we truly disrupted an industry. We have to go way back to 1990, when Nirvana was the best new artist. And because travel was very different then. When I started, it was before the fax machine. Does anyone remember the telex? Anyone remember the telex? You have to go to Smithsonian to see the telex now? Yeah. And travel was a very different thing. It's one of the most disrupted industries in the world. I think next to publishing, it's probably one of the most disrupted in that the way people travel and the way people book travel has changed dramatically. You used to go to a travel agent. In the travel industry, we said we had the element of surprise because you didn't know what you were booking. You said, I want to go to Africa. So you go to a travel agent, you sit in front of them, and they present brochures to you because you didn't know what Africa really looked like. But now you have it in your pocket, right? You can look, read blogs, you can read reviews, you can read all about the hotels, you can find out restaurants within a couple blocks of your hotels. And so the actual booking of travel has been very different. But the traveler also was very different back then. So the traveler and the industry, I think it was a horrible time. All-inclusives were starting, so compound resorts were starting. Cruise ships were getting bigger and bigger, and they convinced you that bigger was better, right? If you can remember back then, they had to build these big ships, and the first one had 1,000 passengers, and you thought that was great. And then they said, in 6 months' time, there'll be one with 1,500 passengers, and then 2,000 passengers. And the consumer was convinced that, bigger is better. Bigger is better in travel. For some reasons, on a ship with 2,000 people would be so much better than 1,000 people. And they convinced you that that was the right thing. The travel industry was becoming all-inclusive, and it was, taking away the experience. And if you looked at all the brochures at that time, they were promising you all the amenities. The first 5 pages of every brochure was what you would, all the amenities you'd have, the comfortable beds, the swimming pool, the restaurants, and when you went on a cruise, you never actually took pictures of the destination. You took pictures of the water slide and the carousel and the food, right? Our first brochure said, if you want the comforts of home, you really should think about staying home. If you actually went on vacation and you felt like you never left home, I think I should give you your money back, right? So the industry itself was an issue. And then the idea of sustainable tourism came along. And it started with ecotourism in the mid-90s. So I have to give you a little bit of an intro into the industry as a whole, because this is new co and we're 25 years old, so I'm kind of an old co, new co. I'm just sliding in under the radar. What is a new co, a 25-year-old company? But the International Ecotourism Society, like in the mid-90s, it was ecotourism. That was a buzzword, right? It was a very different time. Sting was like running around naked in the rainforest, and we were all trying to recycle. And suddenly, the idea of the environment became an issue. And then the Ecotourism Society launched this definition, which confused everybody. This was like way back in 1995. Responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and improves the well-being of local people. Well, this screwed up everything for so many people. It confused the consumer. There's 2 reasons. First, we were talking about ecotourism, and suddenly it introduced something called responsible tourism, responsible travel. And it was a new definition of what responsible tourism was. But the last sentence there's so much in one little sentence there that caused the industry to change. And that was, conserves the environment, which is ecotourism, but improves the well-being of local people. And people were thinking, well, I just want to go on holiday. I don't want to save the world. I just want to go lie on the beach for a week. I want to go on one of those huge ships. I want to go on those compound resorts and eat as much as I can and drink as much as I can for, $9.99. And then Al Gore came out with The Inconvenient Truth in the early 2000s, and he started talking about climate change. And suddenly they combined the two and created sustainable tourism. So within our little niche, the consumer was so confused, right? Because there was all these isms. And then but people were changing the way they lived at home, but they would suspend their beliefs when they went on holidays. So all of us started recycling at home, putting low-watt light bulbs at home, eating organically, 100-mile diet. We're living a more sustainable life. But when we go on holidays, we go on a cruise ship or stay in a compound resort, and we don't care that we're consuming mass amounts of resources. And just outside the walls, people don't have access to clean drinking water or access to medical care, right? So we suspend all those beliefs because we are going on a junket trip. And the travel industry starts selling capacity. We are selling capacity. There's all these resorts going up everywhere, and that the travel agent, no one in the travel industry got into the industry to get rich, right? They got in the industry because they love travel. They love the idea of selling travel. But our industry has become commoditized because everyone's selling capacity. There's now 5,000, 6,000 passenger ships, compound resorts that need to be filled, and the industry starts selling commodities. So that's really where we came in. So in the last 10 years, the industry continued to disrupt. And I'll just go through these quickly. 10 years ago, 1 in 5 people chose an all-inclusive holiday. But today, it's 75% are taking compound resort holidays. Okay? And it's growing. That number is growing. And this is according to UNEP, which is the United Nations Environment Program. Of every $100 spent by tourists in a developing country, only $5 actually stays in the local economy. This is where it's not sustainable for travel, because people are traveling and local people aren't benefiting from people being there. So the industry has to change, and where we came along is how we thought differently about our business model. But still within the industry, it's rapidly growing. We have a great industry. We had 1 billion people travel for the first time in 2012. They say by 2020 it's going to go to 1.8 billion. Not many industries can say they're going to grow that fast, right? So it's a great industry. But with only $5 staying in the local economies, it's not going to benefit local people, and it's not a sustainable model. And the WTTC says that in the next 10 years, tourism will go to 10% of global GDP, or $10 trillion. Huge industry. So the issue the conundrum that we face is, out of the 40 poorest countries in the world, tourism is the second most important foreign exchange next to oil. So this is where sustainability is possible and how travel can be a force for good. And this is where we came in as a company. Because we are traveling to the 40 poorest countries in the world. We are traveling to the most in need countries in the world. But the money isn't staying in the local economy. So we believe at G Adventures that there's a possibility. Is it a possibility that the world could see a new way of giving back by going on holidays? If business models changed, could going on holiday be your form of giving back? Because we all know how businesses are changing, and the world is going to be changed by future generations, not by nonprofits. It's going to be other companies. It's going to be companies. You see it already with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, Ted Turner. All the private sector companies are the future, and employees and people looking for work, they want to work for companies that are going to change the world. They don't want to work. They want purpose-driven business models. And we are traveling presently to the 40 poorest countries, the most in need people on the planet, spending tons of money to go there. So the dream with us at G Adventures is, could tourism be the greatest form of wealth distribution that the world has ever seen? $10 trillion is going into tourism. We're growing at a meteoric pace to have 1.8 billion tourists by 2020. Can your form of giving back actually be going on holiday? So in order for that to happen, business models have to change. Social entrepreneurship and social enterprise has been around for years. In basic form, when a nonprofit acts like a for-profit company, they sell you something. So they sell you a furry tiger. World Wildlife Fund sells you a tiger. They're acting like a company. They're selling you something. But they take that money and they sell it to, they save the tiger. So that's kind of a nonprofit. It's been reserved for nonprofits. But social media has created a level of transparency in the business community that's never existed, and the engagement level in which consumers can access brands, it's unprecedented. We all grew up in a one-way conversation with brands around the world. To be an iconic brand, you just had to send great messages one way to consumers. Nike in the 90s. You guys who grew up in the 90s? Some of you, pretty young audience. But Nike hired the greatest athlete in the world, Michael Jordan. They did these amazing commercials of him slam dunking the ball, right? It was a one-way conversation to make you think Nike was the greatest thing on earth, right? You walked into a Nike store, you remembered the commercial, Michael Jordan made you feel a certain way, and you bought that jacket. But that doesn't exist anymore. It's a two-way conversation. If Nike wants to be an iconic brand, they have to, you can follow Phil Knight on Twitter. All of their factories have Facebook pages. If they fire a bunch of people and treat them badly, they're all going social, and they have all kinds of websites for them to complain. So suddenly, marketing becomes a two-way conversation. We've seen examples of this all over the world. Probably one of the greatest examples, quickly, is Enron. Right? The accounting firm on record for Enron was Andersen Consulting, the largest consulting company in the world. When their executives started going to jail, there must have been a meeting somewhere that said, guys, we're kind of in trouble. We're the largest accounting firm and consulting firm in the world, and the executives are going to jail because they cooked the books. So what did they do? They did the Nike playbook, right? And if you remember, they hired the greatest athlete at the time, which was Tiger Woods. Then, not now, but Tiger Woods. And they put a billboard in every airport in the world. Do you remember the airport with the big billboard with Tiger Woods shipping from the green? At the bottom it said Accenture, right? One-way conversation. Overnight, the same company, the same consulting company, Andersen Consulting, became Accenture, and we believed it on a one-way conversation. I don't believe that could happen anymore. But the transparency to become an iconic brand between social media and social entrepreneurship has developed a whole new breed of companies which are considered social enterprises. Social enterprise companies. Any company can be a social enterprise with a social and purpose-driven business model, and creating purpose within their engagement with their customers, engagement with their employees, retaining and hiring the best people. All of these things make up today. And you see, I saw like Burberry is announcing that they're now a social enterprise. They are on a mission while doing plaid clothes, whatever they do. They're as well going to now save the world. So, suddenly your culture becomes your brand. Suddenly people relate to you as a company and the people within your company because your people are so social. When we started back in 1990, the world didn't need another travel company. The magic that we create every day is that 160 people book trips with us, or 160 countries book trips with us every year, right? Canada's only 9% of our business. How can we convince someone in Finland to book an African safari with a Canadian company? How did we manage to export services, export tourism, create a brand that was strong enough to engage our customers to a much higher purpose than just travel, to transcend what we do? And that's really the magic that how we disrupted our industry and just became a tour company, a travel company, and become the largest in our space in the world today. With, we have offices in 28 countries, we have, 2,000 employees now around the world, and as I mentioned, Canada's only 9% of our business. And how our customers show their appreciation for brands in the future is very different. This is, I show this slide of one of our employees. People said, that was just a crazy employee that got your brand tattooed on their leg. But then it suddenly became a thing. And I said, no, you would be wrong. When more and more people started to show their appreciation for our brand. The next generation just thinks of things so differently, right? I mean, I own this company, and if I got that tattoo, my mother would kill me. Like, these are crazy people. But the next generation thinks different. What makes an iconic brand and how they engage transcends the product. It transcends what they do and engages the customer to a much higher purpose. So we have a foundation called Planetera, and we have 50 community projects around the world that engage with our customers, that engage with our tours, and help to alleviate poverty, create education, water, all different types of things where we engage our customers and, through travel, creating a new breed of social enterprise that didn't exist. We didn't relate to ecotourism, we didn't relate to responsible tourism, we certainly didn't relate to sustainable tourism, so we decided we were just going to change the game completely with how we offered tours. I'm going to give you examples of how this works. The IDB, probably one of our proudest moments, the Inter-American Development Bank and the MIF, the Multilateral Investment Fund, gave us money as a government agency to build community projects around the world. The first time a government agency worked with a for-profit company. And I actually went to present this at Washington, and the audience booed me when I went on stage because they didn't think a government agency should fund a for-profit company to make their company better. But we, for 2 years, explained to the IDB that we were not just a regular company, we were indeed a social enterprise. Giving you some examples on the ground. This is an example of, in India, when we do city tours for all of our trips on day one, and we've been doing them for years, instead, we went to go to a street kids home, and the kids are trying to learn English to repurpose their lives. We put them in a one-year training program, and when you take a city tour on day one with us, these are your guides for day one. I'll give you an example of some of our programs and how we incorporate social giving in our programs, in service. This is our latest one, Women on Wheels. Women on Wheels is women in the slums and in shelters in India. We are taking them and giving them an 18-month training program to get the chauffeur license, and then we give them a car. And now when you arrive in India, they're picking you up. They do all of our arrival transfers for our customers. I'd like to show you a quick video of what that looks like. Take a look.
I would see the faces of my beautiful daughters. I had no identity and also had little income. I knew I wanted a change for me and for them.
There were many fears. What would people think of me? Was it safe? But I knew this was a great opportunity.
When they came into Azad Foundation, the way they talked, they hardly talked, some of them, the way they looked, the way they thought about themselves has changed completely to women who are now so confident, so sure of how they've been able to help their families. Women on Wheels is a social enterprise that provides livelihoods as professional chauffeurs to resource-poor women, and on the other hand also provides safe and alternate transport options to women users of the services.
I learned to drive, I learned self-confidence and English, I learned about women's rights.
G Adventures believes in responsible tourism. They have a lot of women clients who come into India to travel. They were looking for safe transport options for the women who come into India. They have supported us in terms of bandwidth, in terms of fleet size, and the work that we are doing so that we can become a stronger organization.
Now I work full-time for Women on Wheels. I enjoy talking with the travelers. They feel safe with me.
I now have courage and confidence in myself. I hope women everywhere pursue happiness and freedom.
Now when I see the faces of my daughters, I know everything is going to be fine.
Thank you. Just quickly as I end here, because I'm just over my time. G Adventures celebrated 25 years, and I've got some exciting news. Last year, the UN announced that we will see the end of extreme poverty in our lifetime. They made this a statement in April in 2015. In 1990, when we started, there was 5.2 billion people on this planet. 2 billion of them were living, or 2 billion of us were living in extreme poverty. Today, last year in 2015, there's now 7.3 billion people on the planet, and there's only 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. That means in the 25 years since G Adventure started, we've increased our population by 40% and reduced living in extreme poverty from 36 to 12%. We believe we have a very high purpose for travel, that travel can aid in poverty alleviation, that it can truly change the world. And there is no faster path to peace than people getting to know other cultures and how other people live in the world. And we believe travel can be that vehicle. So thank you for having me, and thank you, NUCO, and I'll see all of you guys next year. Thank you.